last year, actually. I mean, on and off for the last year and a half, but this has been where we've kind of been living since October, I guess, the end of October.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it is nice. I always thought if I would come back from Israel, I would want to live in Florida, but I mean, I don't, now I'm like so excited to go back to Israel. It's like getting more and more like, why do I have to wait for another few weeks? Trying to pull me. But it's so interesting because I never would have thought, like I watched people leave Israel, the thinking they would be there forever and leaving, and it always made me so sad. And it's like, you're going the wrong direction. Yeah, I know we're live. It's going in the wrong direction. And sorry guys, get to eavesdrop a little bit as you're coming on. And yet when we left, we were going to go back in a couple months, and it just turned into 18 months. And I kept feeling like it's not time. So interesting, because I do think that God guides us if we're tuned in, and it's not always what we think. Right. And now like, come back. Right. Come back. Yeah.
So true. Cool. So true. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So Chana says hi from Vernal, Utah. Shauna's starting out our chat. Everybody else, please chime in. Let us know where you are. I hate to be a broken record. It gets boring, but boring for me too. But we want to see who we're talking to. And people do keep coming on throughout the call. And then of course, most people listen by replay, but when you're on live, you get to co-create the energy and you get to ask your questions. So you're literally helping to guide the call. Share insights. So please do that. The more you do that, the better for everybody. And now, without further ado, let me introduce officially our special guest for today, Orit Esther Riter. Orit Esther and I met several years ago when I did my first Geula Summit, and I worked with her for a while, and she was amazing. She is amazing. My experience was amazing. So after being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 15 years ago, Orit Esther realized that Emunah, which is the Hebrew word for faith, it's a very deep word. Like so many words in Hebrew, it doesn't just translate into English because there are levels and depths and dimensions to every Hebrew word. Every Hebrew word is like kind of like a field in itself. But anyway, to be connected on this deep personal level, she felt was the answer to her personal healing growth and building a solid foundation in her relationship with Source. And it did, in fact, have an incredible healing effect for her. And she moved her career from, believe it or not, culinary chef. She was very successful as a chef toward a more meaningful spiritual path, a purpose-based path of spreading this emunah, this deep quality of faith for souls of all sorts. Her goal is to ignite the lives of, she specifically works with all kinds of people. So her goal is to ignite the lives of Jewish women, men, teenagers, and families worldwide, and also people who are not from a Jewish background, who are Torah aligned. So one of the things that's, I guess you could say different, I don't know if it's fair to say unique, but it's kind of unique. It's like that, she's in a small group of people who gears all of her healing work specifically in alignment with Torah. The truth is that I do the same for both Jews and non-Jews, but people who resonate, you have to resonate with it. It's a special track for people who really want to base their healing, their path forward, etc., on a deep connection from the soul through the blueprint for creation. So Orit Esther is a 2-time book author of the Turnaround series, traveling to speak to thousands of people. Her widespread Torah classes are on a very, very well-known website in the Torah world called Torah Anytime. And she has a daily email. Oh, sorry about that. I think I didn't close something. But what didn't I close? Okay. Anyway, she has a daily email that gives you a little piece of Emunah, very well written, very, very moving, very transformational. So if you want to sign up for that, the links are all below this video or will be. Also, Orit Esther, I want to mention this now. We won't talk about it now, but I want to mention it now before we get started, that she is doing some live events in the New York area in August. So if you are Torah aligned, and if you are interested in not just connecting to somebody or other people from your soul tribe on Zoom, or doing healing by Zoom, which, I mean, I love Zoom, but there's nothing that replaces being with people face to face in a beautiful environment where you get to, not just learn, but really connect, talk, make new friends, personal FaceTime, all that stuff. So we'll be talking about that toward the end. So think about whether that's something that would appeal to you as we're having our discussion here. Okay, with that, all right, Esther, enough of me talking. Let's hear from you. So talk about a little bit about your path, not a whole long story. We touched on that, but what is it that specifically spoke to you or speaks to you? What is this Emunah thing? And how have you seen it catalyze actual emotional and even physical changes, healings for you and for your clients? So just that overview, please, first.
Right. So first of all, I want to thank you and the team at Gate of Unity Productions. Really, thank you so much. This is an honor to be with you, Shifra Chana. Your work is just monumental, and I have met so many people along the way since the first Geula Summit that has told me how amazing your work is and how much it's meant to them in the world. So I want to thank you for all the unspoken words that may not have been conveyed to you. I want to thank you for it in advance. Really beautiful work you're doing and spreading light and healing in the universe. So thank you.
Thank you.
So my Emunah journey is quite funky. I was not Torah observant most of my life, and I did have a true passion for cooking and for enabling people to find their happiness and their peace from a place of food, from the body, from the physical end. And, after quite some time having interactions with various rabbis who were the kosher supervisors at my kitchen, because all the cooking that I did and my catering that I did was all done, in the highest standard of kosher. And at the time, I wasn't observant. I began to really, find it very interesting, the whole Torah way of living. And it really put me on a very different path in my life, because my husband and I and our children were not in the least bit.
Wait. I didn't realize you were doing kosher catering when you weren't observant and keeping kosher. Why was that?
I asked myself till today why that was. I will tell you, I do believe that obviously this was God-given. I looked at it from a strictly marketing perspective. The catering that I did was very boutique-ish. In fact, it was called a Glatt Kosher Catering Boutique. And it was very unique. The style was not your traditional kugel, potato pie and cauliflower pie and, stews. It was very, very unique. And I just felt there was a niche in the kosher world, in the Jewish world. So it was very interesting that I did find myself saying, if I'm going to do it, let me do it for the kosher world.
Wow.
What is be the kosher?
Wow.
Yeah. So it was but that's what led me.
Talk about our footsteps being guided. When you listen to those nudges, you usually get to go far.
Completely. So it was definitely interesting. And, later on, as I felt myself more and more being drawn to the Torah way of living, a lot of all kinds of great tests and trials and tribulations happen from above to sort of, test that loyalty path of yours. And within that, my diagnosis for multiple sclerosis was very monumental. And I really found that, thank God, I was connected to something higher than just the medicine and the conventional. Not that I'm niching that at all, but I'm saying that I had something else to hold on to, that I had a pillar of faith to hold on to, because there was one thing after the other that was really, being thrown in my path. And I have to say, I kind of have learned this through the flesh, through my own flesh. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So really very interesting. So what kind of results did you see, and what kind of results have you seen with others? I know you said you hear from a lot of people. I also hear your name from a lot of people. I'm learning with Orit Esther. I'm doing work with Orit Esther. I'm doing healing with Orit Esther. Why? What kind of results have you been able to facilitate or to help your clients facilitate, and also yourself?
Right. So I think for one of the most important things is I know that it's very common in the healing community to call ourselves healer. So one of the things that I'm sort of like a stickler about, I'm very, specific about when it comes to, my students and people who I work with, my clients, is that I say to them, I'm not a healer. I don't like to use the noun in general. Not that you used it. I'm saying in general. I think that's number one motto for me is to recognize that, yes, I'm involved with healing work, but I'm not, I don't call myself a healer. I don't feel that I'm capable of calling myself a healer. I feel, so first of all, for me, like I said, it was really a pillar of strength to know that there's a rhyme and a reason behind all the circumstances that I had been going through in my life. And when you attach purpose to anything that you go through in life, it really helps you swallow the bitter medicine. But if you feel like it's happenstance and someone just flipped you a bad deck of cards or gave you a bunch of sour lemons and you don't know how to quite make it sweet enough to make it a lemonade, it's very, 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 painful. So to say the least, I would say that, that's really was my catalyst to be able to not only did I experience it on my own flesh, like I said, I with my MS, it's not non-existence. I still have it. I still go to my MS doctor. I still take conventional medicine, but parallel, I'm doing a lot of my own healing work. And so this is what I tell my clients. This is what I share with my students. I don't hide behind the bushes. I believe in a conglomerate of therapies. I'm not the type of person to say you only need energy medicine and that's it. A lot of times I'll tell my clients, hey, you need to go for, acupuncture, you need to go for a long walk, you need to go for ballet lessons. I don't know, like you need to do something else. There's not just this. Sometimes it is enough, but I like to look at it from, a wholesome picture. So there have been amazing stories. There's been a lot of amazing stories, both privately in the one-on-one therapies that I've done, and both students. I mean, students who have not realized the depth of the pattern of their life. They come to realize that if it's one-on-one sessions, and I'll say to them, hey, do you know that that issue that you're telling me to work on, that marital piece or the sciatica pain or whatever it is that you're going through, it's your uncle is sitting on your line. Like, where is that coming from? And we'll suddenly come to like these
ancestral line. Your uncle, you need to explain that too. I don't want to interrupt the flow because you're talking about the things that you've seen, but we do need to explain what is that line thing, because I know that's one of the intriguing things that you do. Very intriguing.
Yeah, the whole pattern of our ancestors and seeing the family tree open up in front of you, and then suddenly your life is not only your life. So yes, this is a big part of the work that I do. We're the tree trunk, and we are connected to so many different branches from within our ancestral patterns and lives that have been paralleled in their life. And what's amazing is that when we look at the whole idea of whether we're talking about reincarnation, which if you look at the gematria numerical value of reincarnation, it equals chesed, which is loving kindness. It's one of the most loving kindness acts that are created. What?
Gilgulim? Which word?
Gilgul equals chesed. Yeah, the same numerical value. So the whole idea of reincarnation is a benevolent act of kindness from our creator, who's really enabled us to have a second chance, third chance, sometimes it isn't, like a thousandth chance, to come back and correct a pattern through a tailor-made, pattern of circumstances. It's because something that my ancestor didn't finish, his lifetime, her lifetime didn't, wasn't enough. And the whole idea is that we're really continuing the pattern of correction, bringing it to hopefully a more final end with every lifetime. So these are the most amazing things. And I have to tell you, the connecting the dots is what brings the healing. That is the true, when you can have an aha moment. So in Torah scriptures, that aha moment means that the divine radiance sort of like sits on top of the crown of your head in terms of an energy center, and sort of opens up the superconsciousness to come down into your consciousness. That's what an aha moment is. It means that sort of God opens up this ability for you to see a wider picture. And then when it's not just about me, and it's about so much more about my life, it's empowering, it's healing. It's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for the sake of those and those that will be, right?
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I know that you told me sometimes after our sessions, you would tell me, well, I remember specifically, your grandfather had some kind of disagreement with someone in business, and there were ill wishes. Like, who knew that was affecting me, or how you can even find that. But it sounds like you're saying, I want to just understand the picture a little bit better. It sounds like you're saying that it's not only that we're carrying stuff from past incarnations, or that genetically the genetics of our ancestors affect us, or we hold patterns, but that I hear you saying that there's specific incidences, which karma is not a Jewish word, but people understand it. So like that, on that tikkun karma level, that you're here. I don't think I've heard you say this before, that we are here in part to help resolve those things for the branches of our trees that showed up in other bodies.
Yes.
But that are connected to us. That's unbelievable. That's quite amazing.
It's very, very, very important for us to recognize that it's all out of the benevolent hand of our Creator. That's really giving us an opportunity for the soul who has, not been able to correct. So there's a fragment of consciousness that still resides in us. And we are here to now bring that to as close of a perfection. That's what healing is really all about. That's what it means to face my imperfections. A lot of the imperfections that I'm facing are not mine. They didn't start with me. Yeah. And I have to know that. I have to know that. And the things that I do meet, the imperfections that I do meet, even in others, the clashing of energy spaces. How do you clean something in the world? You have to take a rag and you have to rub it against that object in order to bring the luster out, right? That's right. What we're doing all day long. We're rubbing up against other entities, spiritual entities, our family entities, and we're there to shine each other. They're clashing on me, I'm clashing on them, and we don't even realize how luminous, we're becoming just from the meeting point of you and me and rubbing up against almost. Those moments of anguish are actually bringing out the best in us.
But it's not just bringing out the best in us. It's bringing out, I love, first of all, you said so many things already that are gems, like that knowing that something is part of your purpose changes the picture right there before anything actually happens. And it does. To me, it is the deepest number one principle, knowing that there is a higher consciousness that loves us, that is, creating, that's the predicate of that. And then knowing that everything is with love, custom created for a purpose that we will celebrate. That's the messianic promise, that we will rejoice in everything that happened because we will see the result. Right now we see the backside of the tapestry. Soon we'll see the front side of the tapestry. We're starting to get a little glimpses though, a big glimpse. Right. But then you're talking about how we're not here alone. We're not here as only ourselves. I'm putting it into my own words, obviously, but that we're here carrying, or like Kabbalistically, the sparks that the soul encloses in, like Kabbalah says that when the soul comes down, it is running after God, hiding in the divine sparks. God is hiding in the divine sparks of every encounter, every piece of food you'll eat, everything you'll touch, every person you interact with, every time you interact with them. But now you're saying, the way you're describing it, I'm seeing that some of my sparks that I need to retrieve, my relationship with God, my partnership with God in revealing God, are actually trapped in other people's issues and other people's traps. So they're me. They free me by showing up in me, and I free them by acknowledging that and working with that. Is that fair? Does that fit with what you're saying?
100%. The people that trigger me, the people who annoy me, the people who get me jolted. Oh my gosh, I got to do something about this. Or like really are the ones that touch the core of me. They're the ones that are actually holding a spark of my essence. That co-creator in me, the active role of assuming the role of co-creator, becomes activated every time I meet with something that on the surface, I just want to fight and resist and deny and cry and push away from my life. I just want to be like, get out of here. I don't want you. But it's those parts of me that what I don't like is what I'm seeing in me and them. There's a part of me that I feel you captured. You captured a part of me. How dare you take a part of my soul away from me? And that annoys me. But if I could just redeem myself through the situation, that's Geula.
Oh, this is unbelievable. I don't know if people are going to get what I'm seeing something now. So I went through by divine providence, this experience. I talked about it once on a call where I was in a seminar and I felt dominated by the trainer just right the days before the summit started. And I was very angry. And I couldn't even listen. And then finally, I realized I'm generating this whole experience. She doesn't even know who I am. It's all happening in me. But that's as far as I got. This is taking it and it did relax everything, but this is taking it a very big step farther. And that is that person, that interaction, that trigger is designed by God through that person to trigger me. God's right in it the whole time, acting as the person, acting as the trigger, the Shekhinah and the Hasidus talks about this, the Tanya talks about this, how everything that happens to us is really God's immanent presence, the Shekhinah acting through that thing or that person. So it's all God talking to us. But anyway, so that triggers me to see that there's a part of me. How come I got angry? Because I felt disempowered in myself. So that means there was a piece of me. Sorry, I'm just putting this out in public right now. Piece of me trapped in that potential experience that only once I had the experience could I see where that missing piece was and retrieve it.
It's a redemption of self. That's the true process of redemption of oneself. And the broken pieces, the broken experiences, and the broken people that I meet. The reason why they're broken and I'm broken is because our parts of self are not within us. We have to constantly go through receiving it and redeeming it back. And that's a painful experience. Think about it. Something broken and now gluing it back together. That's a very painful experience. So we have to recognize that it takes work, but that's the pleasure of life. The pleasure of life is getting ourselves back to being wholesome. But that requires also an expansion. I have to be willing now to take my brokenness and encompass the other brokenness. That's an expansion. That's painful. Think about when we expand our muscles, when we go exercise, right? That's a painful experience, but growing pains are painful.
Actually, I would say it's a stretchier experience or a confronting experience. The ego does not like to be confronted. But I don't know. I think once you know what's going on, it doesn't have to feel painful. It's kind of like, when you're lifting weights, yes, it's confronting your muscles. Yes, it's like, feel the burn, but it doesn't feel painful necessarily because
if you know it, it's for
you know it,
right? That's it.
Right. Wow.
You know it.
I believe it's not only a piece of yourself. It's divine sparks that belong to you that were trapped in that potential interaction with that person you never met before and will never meet again. Sometimes the people you meet every day or you live, but wow, what an empowering, incredible way to see that. So you're telling us that not only that, but that there are pieces of ourselves that are sparks that are in our ancestors' interactions that we know nothing about. And then we're confronted with those things, those experiences, and we were wondering what's wrong with us. And it's not anything about what's wrong with us. It's about what we're here to actually elevate. And then from there, talk more about the work. Back to the original question, what kind of things have you seen happen when people do that? And it's obviously not just that it's happening to you, it's releasing stuff, from what happens to the ancestors, what happens to the children, the grandchildren, when people make these shifts also. That's a very important thing.
Right. So, I mean, look at that. I've seen it time and time again where an experience, for instance, someone at the age of 35 suddenly has an experience where they feel very paranoid about illness and they don't understand where it's coming from. And then when you go and you research back, this happened to me not too long ago. I was actually dealing with a rabbi and I was doing some energy work on him. And within 2 sessions, I connected it came to me intuitively. And again, these are methodologies that I teach. Also, men and women had to go through the program and actually learn this for themselves. But what we came to was that his grandfather, father, at that age, went through some sort of a situation. Oh, I think it was a fire. I have to recall it. Went through, I think, a fire. And he had to actually pull all his family out of the house, him and all his children out. And in the meantime, this rabbi at the age of 35 didn't realize, well, it's like a sudden download of like, where's this paranoia coming from? It's because now, why does God do this, so to speak? Listen, I don't understand exactly why he does it, but we get a glimpse of it because this grandfather wasn't able to bring godly Mashiach, Messiah consciousness into the event, probably to its fullest extent. In other words, maybe this grandfather walked around resenting or, being angry over the situation as opposed to feeling grateful and realizing the miracle that he had been given in his life, the opportunity. And so what happens is there comes along the grandchild who has to now come in and infuse a godly consciousness to redeem that event, that memory that was stuck in the pipeline of the family tree, right? The ancestral pipeline. He has to come along and now almost relive it to some degree or another and parallel the path of the grandfather in a different way And it gives him an opportunity to now take that experience and lift it up and thereby redeem it and create wholesomeness in it. So these are all benevolent acts. And I had someone else who I was doing work on, and she can't understand why every time she's trying to move forward, she feels like she just can't bring it to its fruition. Like, it's like I'm taking it there and then it's being taken away from me. And we realized that the person she's named after is somebody in her family tree. Forgive me, I don't remember the exact details. And this woman had her legs amputated. So she couldn't really literally move forward. And so now it's this, ancestors, her and her lifetime to like now elevate it up and say, you know what, you're going to bring it to the end, God, like, to really elevate it and recognize that also that was a stuck pattern. The key here is you have to be able to see God in everything. And not only see God, but God equals good. So when you find God, you find good, you find purpose. And again, that's the whole, like in a nutshell, that's all of existence. That's all the exile is about. It's this find God in as many situations that you face, that you can, and then thereby revealing its ultimate purpose and then the benevolence and love of God that he has for us.
So would you agree with the statement, every acute or lingering dis-ease, whether physical illness, emotional illness, relationship illness, out of alignment situation, is something that is persisting, so that because there's some piece that still needs to be clarified, like I like that cloth image. So the higher consciousness sees everything clearly, and there's a direct flow, and the flow when it's not stopped.
It's to return everything back to source. Like you said, it's to return everything back to source. There's a part of our davening, of our prayer, that we say that we ask God to bring us back to Yerushalayim and Sion, to Jerusalem and to Zion, right? So what is Zion? Zion really means Bet David, the house of David, the house of the kings, right? But it also means the word
Messianic lineage,
right?
Okay.
The David
temple. There are different meanings,
right. Right, there are different meanings. But if you take the word like simplistic translation of what Sion means, Sion means a mark.
Yes.
Right, a point. So what this
like a landmark,
like a bookmark, like when you want to, like you grade a paper, right? So that's like a mark.
Oh, it also means a landmark, like a marker.
Landmark, right. Exactly. It also means, by the way, how do we call the prayer? The places of burial of the righteous sages.
Right?
We also call it, right. So this is all has to do with Sion.
I told you guys, Amuna, no Hebrew word means one thing. It's a whole universe.
I know, right? And you got to retrieve all of those meanings to kind of get the idea, the gist of what God kind of meant when he put the language right in. But here I want to relate to the idea that what God means, that the ultimate idea of Geula and redemption means to come back to Jerusalem. Yerushalayim means a place of shlemut, a place of wholesomeness and peace. But how do you get there? Is when you can find that siyun, when you can find that inner point of godliness, that you recognize that you're co-creator. You have to go back to that inner point of holiness where you recognize, what does it mean to be a co-creator? It means I go back to something that was fragmented off from my consciousness. I go back and I bring my inner point back into consciousness to that event and recognize God's love for me in there. And that's how I become co-creator. I have redefined, I have, so to speak, created a new definition of that event in my mind. My mind is the closest to the super consciousness. When I can change it here, that's where the opening happens. That's where super consciousness comes in. And that's redemption. That's what God has been doing for 5,782 years.
And that's healing, because when the flow is not blocked, according to the Tanya and other sources, when the flow is going without blockage, there cannot be any illness in the body or any other part of us.
That's why that's why we were healed when we received Torah, right? At Mount Sinai. What does it mean? It means you have to be in a place of wholesomeness. You have to be a vessel that could receive all of God's light. You see, God never stops giving. We stop taking, right? What does it mean we stop
Yes.
taking? When we're broken,
Unconsciously mostly. Yeah. Go ahead.
when we're broken, then and that's the pain of the Shekhinah, of the divine, radiance. She just wants to give. Moms just want to give. We have milk when babies are born up to kazoo. We just want to give, 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 give. And at one point, it's like, no, don't feed the baby too much. That's mother instinct. That's, so to speak, the supernal mother. She just wants to give and give all good and to the point of no end. She's end stuff. She's no end. You just take, take, take. But when I have in my mind my own agenda of what I want, well, here, God, look, I got a bucket list right here. I want this. I want a husband to take out the garbage. I want kids who listen. I want a bank filled, blah, blah, blah. I want everything my way. God says, hey, you're not aligning yourself. The way I pour things down is done, in a certain triangular round. And in the meantime, I'm like this big glob, this mixed up, distorted.
In other words, not that we're not supposed to ask and not that we're not supposed to receive, but rather it depends on our channels and how they're sorted out and open or closed. Exactly. Yeah, I felt that way for a very, very long time.
Yes.
And I see it. Wow. So I'm not sure I understand the question, but can you just give us a mini map of, you talked about it already, about the superconscious hovering above, but just flesh that out a little bit, if you would. How do you see the structure of healing happening within the human?
Right. So
God.
Can I talk about the 10 spheres? I mean, is that something? Yeah, the 10 energy centers, right?
Sure.
Right. So that is really a big medium of the way that I work. Actually, I work through the 10 spheres, and I work through also the 22 Hebrew letters, because each letter, what are the letters? When God created the world, he created first the letters, and the letters brought into the world of existence, right? Those are the energy channels through which all of God's light and abundance and blessings flow through the shape and the form of the letters. It's actually one of the things I'm going to be deepening the retreats, right? And the programs that God willing I'm going to be teaching. That's what I'm focusing on, because I feel like this is so deep.
If you can change the letters, you change reality, because God is speaking those letters into being in partnership with us, how we receive them. The letter, the secrets of the letters is unbelievable. But I just have to say to the audience that the letters you can have the same letters. I'm sure this is what Orit Esther is speaking to. You can have the same, let's say, 3-letter words. For example, the word oneg, which is pleasure. It's actually divine pleasure and the core soul pleasure, where everything is amazing, infinite bliss in its highest sense. Transposed is nega, which is basically
a plague,
plague, illness, exactly. So when that's the thing, the world is created with all its component parts out of order. And we're here to bring them back into order. So we don't have to create anything. Co-creating means you're taking what is and you're just seeing it from a bigger frame, and through your consciousness and then your aligned actions, putting it in a different order. And that literally changes everything.
Everything.
Fascinating.
100%. You take the word Sarah, which is sorrow in Hebrew, and you switch letters around. It's so hard. That's a window that allows this beautiful light to come into your life, right? Pesha, wicked, right, is Shefa, abundance, right? So there's so many, and this is some of the ways that I also do energy work. Is I take even the way that the word of illness is spelled out, and we're able to actually, restructure it. I mean, a lot of my inspiration comes from the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, right? The original father of Hasidism, right?
So the power of redemption. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like the Shem, God willing. So what happens is everything starts from above, right? We're required to be thinking individuals. In fact, is the whole idea of corrected consciousness should be that I first think before I do. I first think before I speak, before I feel, before I do. That's sort of like the anatomy of also the way the body is. I have to think, then I'm speaking what I'm thinking, right? And then I'm feeling. That's what takes it down. And then I can go and spring into action. A lot of us, we just do unconscious doing. We don't know what we're doing. Yeah. We run. It's a dopamine high, or it's some sort of other high, or it's because this one said, right, or people pleasure high, or whatever it is. But that's the way we're supposed to sort of bring down the abundance of light that God gives us. So it starts off from the super consciousness. And then I have to, in the Sphira, in the energy center of Chokhmah, which is wisdom, I have to just be inspired. I have to be inspired by that thought. You know, it has to like move me in some way. It has to, right? It has to jolt me into wanting to explore more. And then I build on it, right? That's Bina. That's the left side of the brain, right? Bina, I want to build on it. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to think about it, pull it apart, discern right from wrong. And then I want to connect to it. I want to connect to it by speaking about it. I either speak about it to myself, self-talk, which is so important. If you don't talk to yourself, who's going to talk to you?
Well, we all talk to ourselves, but it's mostly unconscious. What's wrong with you? How come you did that? That person is stupid. She's ugly. I'm stupid. I'm ugly. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe they did that to me. It's not my fault. Constantly.
Horrible. We really, really need to change and be conscious the way we speak. But that's that's being intimate with that which I know, right? Really allowing that to, and where does it sit? Right here. This is the throat. That I always say, I laugh, but I say there's a reason why God put a hole in your mouth, right? The reason why God put a hole in your mouth is because he put a hole in your mouth because he wants you to use it. He wants you to talk. He wants you to be able to express. He wants you to be able to actually interact, right? With the thoughts that you had that are formed in your brain. And then once I do that, I can now start to feel, I feel good about it. I want to inspire myself to be loved, kind, and do things and really bring about something beautiful by feeling emotion, like feeling it's so important to bring emotion to everything, right? Into everything that we're doing. On the other hand, I can't be too much with emotion. I have to have boundaries. There's time restraints. There's discipline. I can't act completely on emotion because then my love becomes lust, and then I could be swept into immoral desires. So I have to be very, very careful to constantly analyze every step that I'm doing. And then there's that level of peace. Wow, I'm really okay with all this. I like what I'm thinking. I like what I'm feeling. I'm in peace. I'm in harmony. There's, forgiveness is part of this whole process as well, making sure I'm in peace and in harmony. And then there might be some obstacles along the way, because now that which I was thinking that I want to do, well, what if there's obstacles? There's always obstacles, because every time you want to do something, there's always going to be that resistance. Again, that's what makes it shine, right? So I need netzach. I need to be able to have commitment and devotion and confidence. And again, all along these lines, I'm thinking.
Hey, hold your space. Hold exactly where you are. So you're saying also that she's going down the spheros. If you're not familiar with the spheros, you want to get familiar with the spheros, because each of these places, again, this is explained in a unique way right now by you, Orit Esther. When you get, every place that you get to requires some kind of analysis or deepening of the desire, the plan, the insight, the track, so that things are in a holy order. Order is a very holy order that doesn't compress but expresses in only holy, healthy, amazing ways. That is really the core, one of the cores of what we're doing here. We're taking a world that has incredible potential out of order, so it becomes destructive. We're putting it in order, and this happens within us also. So Orit Esther, I just don't want anyone to miss this. She just said, when you get to the place where the thought and the decision, the insight, the superconscious knowing, then the insight of Chachma, then the plan of Bina, then the Das, the connection to the emotions. It's how are you going to do it? Starts coming down closer to taking action. Then you hit the idea. We keep hitting stops. We hit a stop with Netzach, just the level for those familiar. We hit a stop. It's almost like the inner system keeps asking us, "Are you sure you're ready?
Yeah.
You sure you're ready? Have you got it right? Hang on. You're sure?
And are you being motivated through the right channels? Because that's the thing. That's what it means to be aligned with what God wants to give. Yes. He's giving it. If you're not opening up those channels of consciousness, and notice, I'm going like this. It's like coming down, right?
Yeah. And at every place where we get frustrated. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's when it's going to be misconstrued, and it's not going to be received as something good.
Even by us. Yes. We have to see these obstacles. This is not just one core general thing. There's a very big difference between thinking of something in a general sense, everything is meant to be, and really being able to bring it down into the specifics and the details. Like the Torah is all over the inner Torah, that when we want to know God, it has to be in the details of the details, because that's where we live. And that's when God is in our cells and in every aspect of our lives. And we start to become truly miraculous. So it seems like all of this is constantly requiring us to ask ourselves, what is it that I truly want? Why? Is that something that is connected to my purpose? Is it good? Is it a win-win? I have rules about this in my courses, like how we can tell if it's a true redemption, Geula vision or not.
Okay.
And then to bring it down to keep refining, because I've heard many times, and it's so true. It's so true that we cannot succeed beyond our level of personal development. So when we get stopped somewhere, if we would see, wait, what's missing in me? What do I still have to develop? What am I unconscious of? Do I need help? Do I need prayer? Do I need to sit? Do I need, deeper delving? If we would see it that way, we would see that I'm sorry, I'm talking so much, but
no, it's beautiful.
You're really activating my brain. It's so important. What you're saying is so crucial, because you're laying out the construction in a different way of the human being and our purpose. So to see every single thing through the lens of, how am I showing up? Am I showing up deeper? What is this attempting to call out from me? With your passion, with your purpose, with what you desire. Okay, please continue. You stopped at Netzach. I stopped at Netzach.
Yeah, no,
push through.
No, but I'm really glad, because I think that there are points that I'm rushing through it, and you're really like expanding the idea of what it means to us. And exactly, that's what it is. That's the road to Passover. When we celebrate Passover, we call it a Seder. Why? Because everything is chaotic. Everything is told.
Seder meaning order. Seder,
right?
Order, like divine. It means order in general, but we're talking about divine order.
Right, and that's what the road to redemption, our Exodus, is all about: seeing things in its proper pipelines, and its proper boxes, and not getting it misconstrued with something else. And
right.
that's why the whole idea of redemption is clarity. Like I said, having that idea of ancestral patterns and recognizing why, somewhat of more of the why things are happening, really helps us. So Netzach is about the commitment. Now if I meet an obstacle and I say, well, I don't know if I have the strength to be able to move forward with this, and so on. No, you got to have fortitude. You got to have commitment. You've got to be able to lenatzach, to be victorious, and say, no, right. I'm moving forward. I have confidence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
On the go ahead.
And the little voice is constant. That's the voice. I call that the voice of the snake. It is directly a personal download of the snake energy from the Garden of Eden. It's constantly telling you why you shouldn't, why you can't, why it's too late, why you're too old, why you're too young, why you're too stupid, why other people won't let you, why other people who succeed are different from you and you never can. And that's where Netzach specifically, we stopped here for a reason, because that is the quality of the soul, to break through all of that garbage and prove that it's all a flow, open the channels of flow. That's where miracles really start.
Absolutely. In fact, is Netzach, from Netzach, you need to go straight back to Amunah. And you have to realize that even your confidence, the only reason why you have confidence, because you've got the backup of God. Yeah, He's pushing you. He wants you to do this. And if he wants you to do this, that's what self-confidence is about, is God confidence. Yes. When you have God confidence, you have self-confidence.
Which really requires changing for so many of us, our relationship with God. There's so many parallels here between what I teach and work with every day, but I don't do it so much from a healing context, but although always
it all is healing, but it's all healing.
Teaching and healing is very overlapped. Yeah, it's unbelievable. People have to understand this. We have to understand this. We're literally processing units. We're channels between heaven and earth. And everything that we carry now, Orit Esther is bringing out that it's not just our stuff, our life, it's everybody's stuff in our life. And you mentioned earlier, we create more clarification as we go, but this is the end, you guys. We're the last generation of exile and the first generation of redemption, which is why so much stuff is coming up and why things are going to happen faster and faster. So learn the tools, get connected to whatever your support is. You need to, your soul tribe, your mentors, your learning path, because then you will be part of the solution. You will be a quicker and quicker, more and more masterful processing unit with God working with you.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so continue the path.
We're almost done. Yeah. From Netzach, once you have that commitment and that zeal and that I'm committed to doing this, it doesn't matter what, right? Now we're moving forward. And by the way, every one of these channels parallel to a physical part in our body, that's we won't get that. And so I've seen people who have stomach ailments, which now have to work with their, Tiferet center. I have to work with their, people who have problems with their right side. Well, I have to see what's going on in their Netzach center. How committed are they? And so on and so forth. And then we move on from Netzach. Now, even though we're confident, we still have to now go back and always notice how how God works with us. There's always that ratzo, right? I'm moving forward, and then wait a minute, let me and the hod, which is, being sincere. And now let me just again, wow, let me just remember why I'm here. Wow, I'm so in awe. I'm so in gratitude. I have to recheck and redefine how sincere I am. Do I really want to do this because of me? Is there ego here? Is it really God? Is it for a benevolent purpose? Or, again, what's driving my path? So I sort of I'm moving forward, but let me just redefine just one more moment. And that's, and also, just recognizing again, who's pushing me, who's the one. And then that finally drops into the baseline, what we call yesod, right? The foundation. And here I want to have a bonding experience. I really want to feel that there's an exchange between me and God, me and the person, that which I was already going into movement with. There has to be a bond. There has to be some sort of connection going on here. That's the foundation. I can't create the foundation by myself. There has to be someone else along the line that I'm able to do it with, because everything in life is all enjoining. It's all enjoining, right? It's not, I don't live in a world just by myself. I have to recognize that everything that I do, in fact, is one of the things I teach people very, very often. What does it mean to share? Sharing is caring. What does that mean? It means that every time I share and I bond with someone else, do you know what I'm really doing? This is going back to what we were saying before with the redeeming.
Creating a higher order.
Yeah, but even think about what I'm also doing is I'm actually implanting a part of me in them. Every time I meet someone and I bond with them and I share something with them, you know what happens? There's more of me in the world. Now I exist in that person, in the FedEx guy, in the ShopRite clerk, in the person I meet at the bank, in the taxi driver I just had a conversation with. There's parts of me that I'm actually spreading, which that's another way of my expression of co-creation, because the creator is no end. Every time I have an interaction and I bond with someone, through all experiences, I'm becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm expanding my presence in the world, which is what God wants also, because he has no end, right? So the sharing is a very big part, and that's the foundation. That really is the foundation of life. So every time I bond with my husband, my children, I meet a lot of people, and a lot of women, have a sense of almost resentment of, I'm always doing for my husband, for my children, for my boss, for my mother-in-law, right? I'm always doing something for and I say to them, wait a minute, did you hear what you just said? It's my husband. That means you reside in the husband. My children, you reside in your children. You reside with your boss. It's like, stop thinking you're not doing anything for yourself. You're just putting yourself in another container, but you're still alive. You're still there. You're still investing in yourself. You're not giving yourself away. You're just becoming more of you in different containers and different people and different experiences, right? And that essentially leads us to the last stop, and that's malchut, and that's kingship. All this process enables us to become king over our lives to some degree, or not just anoint God to be king over us, but that we feel a sense of, I matter. I did something. I'm actualizing something in my life, right? So it's a beautiful process.
Yeah. Yes. Beautifully said. I want to just speak to a couple quick questions. Number one, I want to say that I want to just add my perspective to what you said about finding ourselves in others and doing for my, child, husband, friend, students, whatever. So you guys, in case you're wondering about that, it's Orit Esther mentioned malchus. We always want to, everything needs, and seder, order. We need to know that things are in the right order. So sometimes we blur, sometimes we seek to find our identity in someone else, or we feel that we have no identity because of someone else. So we always need to be rooted in all of these things. We need to be rooted in our own selves, our own connection to God, our own malchus, and straighten out our own inner order so that the giving is also coming from that flow. So that's part of it. And the idea here is obviously to be an inside out creator, co-creator, and to be clear in your channels. Also question about Nadia, I'll answer from Nadia, I'll answer. And then if you want to answer different way, feel free. So Nadia asks, how can we discern when it's ego or solely a noble motivation? It seems like we can rationalize and not always recognize how ego is showing up. So my take on this is that everything we do bring, the ego's here and it's part of us and it's what makes us unique, and it does motivate us. Like, and wanting things on a personal level also motivates us, and God designed the world like that. The thing is, are you starting from that a worthwhile vision, a noble vision, a soul vision? That's where my rules come in. Is it a win-win?
Right.
You know, it's something you truly passionately desire. Can it happen now? You know, can you do it unconditionally? Bring it into the world like God does. God creates something from nothing. Like, he's not fixing things. He's flowing his being. So if that's the case, and you keep doing these, checks in between, you just want to make sure that you're not reacting from ego. Not that you're not going to have an ego. The ego is the identity. We want to enlighten the ego. We want to upgrade the ego so it doesn't get in the way. So just enhance it. Like they say, the ego is like a passionate, bull, and it will, if you get it to want to go where you want to go, then you're really in business.
Right. It's in fact, there's a very famous teaching in Gemara, right? In our
Talmud.
How do you say? Right. I don't know how to say the
Talmud.
Talmud. Okay.
you former chef, you.
Missed that on that one. Okay, sorry for that. Anyway, so it says there, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do with that ego, with that Yetzer Hara, with the evil inclination, the one that's trying to constantly drag you down? It says, take him with you to the house of study. Sit him down, say, hey, what's your name? Oh, wow, look, let's get to know each other. Would you like a cup of coffee? How do you like it? Sugar, cream? You kind of like, you recognize that's part of your essence. He's your coach, and there, if you recognize, that's one of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings, right? The father of Hasidus that we were said before, is he teaches us you have to come to peace with that ego. You have to enable that ego. That's your springboard. That's your coach to enable you to shine. And if you didn't have him, if you don't recognize him as him being your partner that enables you, that's what enables you to lift yourself up. Otherwise, you would have no free will. You have to know who you're dealing with. You have to not just hide behind it and say, oh, how can I have that thought? Or how can I have that emotion? Don't deny. You're not supposed to deny. You're supposed to, again, recognize, okay, this is something that I need to heal. All right, let's get to work with it. Let's do work with it.
It's like the topic that you chose for this conversation, confronting our imperfections and God's love. It's I don't know about the word confronting, but sometimes it is like that. Like, just look at it openly and know that it's part of the plan and it's all good. It just has to be put in the right order. I'm so glad that is coming out in this conversation with the letters. I'm so glad you brought up the letters, because this is so key, you guys. Everything you have is on purpose, but it's out of order. When it derails you or hurts others or hurts you, it's out of order. It just has to be put in the right order. So how do you know what's going? You have to learn.
Right.
You have to have mentors.
But part of the reason why it's brought out of order is because when God sends, again, his blessings down, it's when we say pipelines, it's not really a pipeline. Again, it's in the shape of an olive, it's in the shape of a bet, all the Hebrew letters, right? And so if my vessel or my desires are like constricted, because again, I don't necessarily want everything God gives me. Like, okay, he has a reason why he's giving me this husband, but I'm not too thrilled about it. I really would, if I had to place my order, I would have ordered something else on the menu, right? I would have wanted something else. So God is sending me down my husband, and his name is, I don't know, Yitzchak, Yod Tzadik Chet, Kuf, right? Those are the Hebrew letters that spell his name. But I'm not interested in that. My mind, I would love to have, I hate to say it, like the husband, my friend's husband, he's like more like my type, so to speak. God forbid. Those are the things that go through our mind. So now God is sending out down the blessings of all of this. And now my pipeline is very restricted because I'm not interested. So the way now the abundance is coming down, the blessings that are coming down into my life are being squeezed or being constricted. And because it's being constricted, now the order in which the letters are being sent down to me have been jumbled up. And it's literally like playing Scrabble. Now you have to take first the Yud, and then the Tzadik, and then the Chet, and then the Kuf, as opposed to, oh, wait a minute, it came down first Chet, then Kuf, then Yud, then Tzad. It's out of order. But again, if I could just go a little bit as much as possible above myself and say, wait a minute, if God gave me this, there's again a benevolent, we have to judge God in favor. If he's sending this to me and all that God does, what is God's name? Hatov Umeitiv, the giver of good and the bestower of the ultimate good. That's how it's translated. So if I really, and that's where Amuna comes in, if I'm really loyal to that teaching and I really judge God in favor and realize everything he does is good, yeah, it may be I'm not defining it as good because it's hidden good. Hidden good equals bad. And what is the word for bad? Ra, bad. Switch the letters around. Of Ra is
Yeah.
El. I need to be awakened. So
Wow.
every
Whoa,
bad,
whoa, wait. Everybody has to know that this is new. I had never thought of this or heard this before. The word Ra, which is spelled Resh Ayin. If you switch the letters, it means awaken. Is that not the answer to everything that's happening here? Wake
yeah,
up, all of us. Okay, go ahead.
right. So it's think about all day long, all you're walking around your life with an alarm clock. And what are we doing all day long? We're pressing snooze. We're pressing snooze. We're pressing snooze. Don't wake me up, God. I'm interested in continuing my life. You're bothering me. You're disturbing me. And yet the ding dong of the smartphone, which is really making us dumb, by the way, the ding dong all the time. What do you think that ding dong is? The God, in a way, think about it from really God's perspective. So God is waking us up to something, but not to the WhatsApp messages and the Facebook Messenger message. He wants to wake us up. He wants us to, like you said before, we're traveling on a path and God says, stop, closed for construction. Now you have to go and detour. All our lives, we have to detour. But no, I'm stubborn. I want things done my way or the highway. That's not the way it works. I'm here to serve you, God, because you know better. You know my soul. You have the blueprint of my life. And if you're saying, like, what is the construction, the construction guy do on site? He looks at the blueprint. He can't go, he doesn't know where the bathroom is. He doesn't know what tile, he doesn't know anything. He's always referring to the blueprint. The blueprint of my life is in his hands. And if he says to me, you need to go and travel on road number 123 instead of 321, I better, he's going to push me over, and that's not going to feel fun. That's going to be downright bad.
Unless we start to flow with it, lots
Exactly.
of times we can flow with it and it is fun.
That's choice.
Yeah, that's choice, learning, and practice. And yeah, that's how you have choice and consciousness, which one I want to say, you're probably not following all the chat, but somebody asked if we're putting ourselves in other people, aren't they also putting themselves in us? And I would say, and I want to hear from you after, I would say 100%, but is it happening consciously or unconsciously? Like we're here to train ourselves to open to the idea that everything is God and we are the big players in this whole unfolding. And so we have to be conscious and we have to choose what we want from that super conscious inside, that desire that is part of God's plan. When we do that, we are putting out so much more than we're taking in. When we don't do that, we could be anxious, we could be afraid, we could be sleeping, we could be self-repressed, we could be angry because of all the things that are happening in the world as well as in our lives. And then we are allowing all of that to take over our own system. It's super important. This is the number one choice, I think. And then to you, Orit Esther, that every one of us gets to make now. Am I going to be a victim or a co-creator? That was the topic of my opening talk here. Because this is it. And that will take you in the path that you need to go in, with all of these adjustments and move this way and move that way with your partner.
Right.
And with your soul.
Of course, if I take everything as I interpret everything as being, God forbid, bad, that creates a resistance just by me saying that this is bad. Right. Instead of, we're supposed 100%. To get train our mouths to say, oh, so this is for the good. Hey, I don't know how this is good. It's very hidden. There's like a lot of boxes, the Pandora box. There's a box and a box and a box and a box and a box. I bring the analogy, you order a book from Amazon, right? And you're like waiting for the book to arrive and you don't notice there's a box sitting in front of your door for like 300 weeks, but you order this book and we have to realize everything's in a box. It requires a certain amount of investment, time, work, choice. Again, we have that choice. But we need to recognize that, if I see this interaction with someone else as, God forbid, being bad, I'm going to have a huge amount of resistance and say, well, I don't want to interact with this. But if I recognize that through the work, I'm actually, again, that is co-creation. That is being a co-partner, an active partner in creation. God gave us the awesome role to be a co-creator. That's a heavy task, but it's amazing. I can actually make a difference in the world. If I recognize that, how do you become a co-creator? You see something imperfect and you want to perfect it. You don't make it perfect, but you want to perfect it. And the way you make it, as perfect as possible is you keep seeking and trusting. And again, there's the word amuna, being loyal to the good that you know exists in that. If you have your mindset, there must be good. God is good. Everything he does is for the good. So I'm going to seek out. I'm not going to stop until every stone is unturned and I can find that good. I'm on a mission. My mission in life is to redeem godly sparks, to find the good, to reveal the benevolent intention of God when he created the universe. If I'm on that mission, then I'm able to God will help me. Who am I? I'm on a mission. Who sent me? I'm a messenger of God. Every moment of my life, I'm a messenger of God. If I connect back to who sent me, then I get divine assistance from the one who sent me. But if I resist my role,
100%.
right? If I resist my mission and I'm like, I don't want this, I'm not interested, I'm not getting the divine assistance. And that's where a lot of us are lost. We create our own agendas. We create our own missions. If I would just be humbled enough to say, I work for you, God. It's a big teaching in Baal Shem Tov. I'm not, did I forget who's my boss? Did I forget who I'm working for? Did I forget that I'm not in charge of my own life? I didn't create myself. Unless you can get to that humbled place and sort of break, that's a good breaking of the vessel. That's the breaking of the ego vessel. Again, you don't want to completely dismantle it. You want to allow some of that godly light to bring in, feed you with that wisdom of where your next step needs to be.
Yeah, it's just a vessel of, I hope these words aren't triggering anybody because there's just truth coming out here. When you allow, when you don't, our egos can separate us from our source. And when that happens, all kinds of things break down and we are not constructive in our soul mission. And when it opens to the above, then it's our best partner because it's our personality self. And so, yeah, and that's why we have to keep checking and why, just train yourself to talk to God on the inside, learning the inner part of Torah, from all the teachers, any or all of the teachers, including myself that are out there or others. There's so much Torah available, the inner Torah that started with the Baal Shem Tov. It is here to turn the lights on inside of your consciousness and to connect to dimensions that otherwise you have no access to. There are worlds upon worlds that you have no access to without the inner Torah. It's just the way it is because this is God's wisdom and light and presence in the words and in the concepts. And that really is a huge piece of it too.
And I'll say, I want to just say one other thing. When we look about the idea of dimension of time and space, we also have to realize that God is beyond time and space. He created time and space. They're just for our purposes to be in this world, right? So every time I go through a painful experience, I need to understand something, always keep in the back recesses of my mind. When God looks at me right now, he's recognizing, number one, where I came from, all my soul incarnations, my ancestral pattern and tree, the family, all that consciousness, everything from behind. He sees that. He sees where I am now, and he sees what's going to become of me. It's all there laid in front of him. In other words, God sees Gan Eden, right? The Garden of Eden with Adam and all that happened there. And he sees the sin of the golden calf, and he sees the Exodus and the golden calf, and the temples, and he sees Mashiach, he sees Messiah coming, the ultimate. He sees the end. He sees sort of the end, everything at the same time. So I have to always remember as I'm going through everything that a lot of times I may not feel that God is answering my prayers to take me out of this space right now, because he sees that in just another 3 days, the amount of light that is going to be accumulated and brought into my vessel will completely transform me in a different way or matter. So what I might define right now is him ignoring me, and I feel abandoned and rejected, which is by the way the most common reason why we reject and don't want to have a relationship with God, because we think like, oh, he didn't listen to me. I've been praying him for all along and he hasn't been listening to me. But if we don't understand that, again, he's looking at what I will become, because there is no time in his, so to speak, the
there is no death. I'm
Right.
so glad you brought this up because it needs to be said. That's what the redemption is. And all souls will come back into the bodies. It's
Yeah.
happening in the physical world. These are the last transformations that we can do. And it requires exactly what you're saying, Orit Esther. It requires seeing God in everything and
Yes.
wanting that relationship. And God wants, just like you said, he wants to give, he wants to bestow a world with no pain. But
So much.
we have to do the transformations so our ego is aligned, so our consciousness is open, so the flow is established, and then that can all come online. This is temporary, like a birth. A birth gets more painful or more pressureful as it goes along, and then all of a sudden it's over.
Yeah.
And all that just fades away, and there's a new life, and that's what we're going for here. And Orit Esther's talking about the transition, who you get to be in the transition.
It's like, before my days of becoming Torah observant, today I don't watch any TV, but, before my days, as I was a youngster, Price is Right was one of my favorite shows. And I never understood why God wanted me to like Price is Right, but say I use the analogy so much. When Bob Barker, right, used to go and say, what's behind curtain number 1? What's behind curtain number 2? I love that. Today I use that and it's so visual for me. It's like I exist behind curtain number 1, 2, and 3. And I want to know who I am behind the curtain, behind all this resistance. After I go through the experience, there's someone else I never met. There's an Orit Esther that I don't even know exists inside of me. And I want to know her. I want to get to know who she can become. And that's what keeps us going, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Totally.
We're just aligning infinite with finite, and the highest spiritual divine essence with the physical.
Yes.
That's why, people say, why is it so hard? And I say that too. I want it to be done now. So please, everybody, amp it up, because there's a certain amount that needs to happen. Okay, I want to turn this, before we run out of time, I want to know more about the kinds of things, and I think we understand the basic model. Obviously, it's way more complicated, and you use crystals and minerals and the letters and the spheros and all kinds of other things. You do actual, you get information on people's situations in the ancestral lines, and in, all of that. It's very amazing the work that you do with individuals and groups, and you train people to do it also. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that that's what's on the table. But what are the most astonishing results that you've personally seen?
Listen, it's like you're asking me where are the miracles, and I have to tell you there are plenty of them. There are couples I've seen it. It's happened. Again, I make it very clear from the moment they fill out the questionnaire. Again, I'm not a healer. I don't promise a miracle. I could tell you there's a beautiful success rate where most people, let's say literally 85 to 90% will say they feel improvement. Many of that improvement is actually that the situation is like really, really better, long time. So I've worked with something recent. I worked with a boy who is OCD, who was OCD. I worked with him. I'm not going to tell you in one session. I worked with him for about 1.5 years. Okay. But we're talking about a boy, a young, teenage boy who his OCD was so bad. He would stand in front of the door and he would not touch the doorknob. He would actually have his hand, he would take a knife and scrape his hands to the point where it was beyond bleeding. This is aside from using 20 bottles of shampoo, and which again, no judgment call. This was what he was dealing with, the consciousness. Today, the boy sleeps in, if anybody knows dorms of yeshivas, they're not really sometimes always the most 5-star Waldorf Astoria accommodations.
Of a religious seminary, yeshiva, yeah.
Yeah, and he's now in learning and sleeping with other boys who don't always shower every day, and sharing a bathroom with them, and so this is incredible. These are I'm talking about people who have addictions. I work with men who have all kinds of addictions. It could be sexual addictions, it could be alcohol addictions, drug addictions. Definitely have worked with that. People who have cancer. I worked recently on a young man who had cancer in his testicles. Oh my gosh, that was a profound story. Oh, I'm just reminding myself of it. The minute I did the first session on him, I said to him right away, I said, it's testicle cancer. What came out was his grandfather. I said right away after I did the session, I said, why is his grandfather on his testicle? What's going on with the grandfather? What does a testicle mean? It means there's a
Reproduction.
continuum of the generation, right? I said, something's broken in the line. I said, the line broke with the grandfather. What's going on? The mother almost flipped out. She says, oh my gosh, I can't believe you picked it up. I said, what's going on? She said, my husband is not speaking to his father for over like 15 years. I said, well, you know what? If you want your son to heal from this testicle cancer, because they were not giving a good prognosis of this, I said, if you want him to heal, you make sure that your husband finds his father and makes peace with his father. Not 1 week passed, and he made peace with the father. It was this unbelievable, incredible story. And this boy as baffled the doctors, like completely baffled. So again, you have to understand it's the healing work brings about a consciousness of responsibility. And a lot of times I bring it back to the client. I say, it's not just me doing the healing. You have to do something. You have to do meditation. You have to find time to find peace. You have to forgive. You have to elevate. You have to transform. I can only help you along the way. I can open up the willingness, not the willingness, but I can open up the idea so that you're more willing to do it. But ultimately, it's always back in your hands. You have to be willing to step into it, right?
Yeah.
So this is a lot of the work. This is a lot of the work that I do. And yes, one of the reasons why I train people to do it is because there's only so much I could do. Like there's a 4 to 5 week waiting list right now to get a session with me. I can't handle it, honestly. So we've got, thank God, practitioners, all around now in Israel and in Australia and in America and in England. We've got them all over the place. And we want to increase the community. We want there to be more and more people, coming into the community to practice this. Again, as long as they're Torah aligned, they could be Jewish or not Jewish. It doesn't matter. It could be men or women. As long as they're Torah aligned and they're, an acceptance of the idea that we are humbled in front of our Creator, then you can come into the program, and you got to go through an application process and such. But overall, it's phenomenal. Not only do you get to heal it on your own, but your family begins to change. When you change, everything around you changes, right? So it's really phenomenal.
Yes, yes. Say more about what people will experience in the live event, because honestly, I don't think it's been a long time since I've had anybody who came offering a live event, at least that we discussed on a call. There's something we're missing. I actually heard from a mentor, a business mentor, that there's, after people have been shut in for couple years, being only on Zoom, which I do love. There's so many advantages, but that the people have a deep yearning to be face to face, sitting with others. So say more about what the 1 day and the 3-day retreat is, how it works, what happens there, where it is,
exciting,
whatever.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, there are limited spots in both, in all these settings. But the Poconos retreat is a 4-night, 5-day retreat that we're planning. This is the 4th of such kind. I really call it Geula consciousness. I call it completely, that you change your mindset to really expand. And really what it is like-minded women coming together. It's a women's only, these are only women's only. I mean, all the other Zoom stuff is all for men and women, but the live stuff are all only for women, again, Torah aligned women. And what we do is we get together and we meditate. First of all, this retreat center in the Poconos is in the forest. It's like there's a forest in this Poconos, center. And we're just planning this amazing curriculum where we're going to be going out into the forest. We're going to be searching out our Hebrew letters. We're going to be working with the Hebrew letters to really allow that consciousness to come through. And again, a lot of meditation. There's pool time, there's massage time, there's eating great food. It's all of that, but it's really, in the beautiful, majestic setting of the Poconos Retreat Center. So that's Wednesday. We're spending Shabbos together, the Sabbath together, and singing and learning. And I can't even breathe when I think about it. It's so exciting. So that's the August 17th to the 21st. And again, we plan this every couple of months. We plan these beautiful retreats. The truth is this retreat will probably be the last that I'm going to be planning for a long time, because I'm starting to try to slow down just a little bit. My touring has really gotten me. It's been a little bit hard with the, like you said, we came out of hiatus, our little cocoon here after Corona, but I think I've been traveling a little bit too much. So I'm probably going to slow down the pace. So that's why I'm urging people to come and sign up for particularly this one, because it really might be the last one for a while. And then
Also, by the way, may I say there might be more chaos happening in the world temporarily. So this might be a good time.
Good idea to redefine and collect our energies. Absolutely. There's a lot of transformations. I mean, in one of the last retreats, we had a woman come, and she said she was literally suicidal before she came. She was literally ready to just let it go. And we have her testimonial up. I mean, she was really, really, and thank God. I mean, you think of it like, what can already happen in 5 days?
Right.
Lots happen. And we become a community. We just love one another so much. Women you never met before. You don't realize that because you have something so deep in common, you connect in ways. We have these, these open class workshops we just connect to one another. We really do. We hug each other from like 3 hours. We're just like friends forever. So beautiful. So then you have the 1-day workshops, which are right now in Lawrence, New York. One is in Lawrence, one's in Muncie, one is in Brooklyn, 10 to 4. We're going to do like a synopsis of some of this work that I've been describing. And it's really, really very, very beautiful. Again, coming to very deep healing through the power of our imagination. That is the highest soul power that God has given us. Be able to close our eyes and really deeply connect and bring down the light from a very high place. So and that fits into a lot of the other Zoom things that I'm also teaching online. So, but like you said, there's nothing like the one-on-one experience.
So somebody's asking, what do you have in Israel? Here, this one-on-one is in the post.
Right. No, it's coming through, God willing, after the holidays, after the high holidays in October, November, we're planning we already did one in Kitron up north in Israel. We did that in May, right after Passover. And now, God willing, we're going to plan one in Israel. So if you want to join the waiting list or the, potential list, then, just write to us. Yeah, definitely. We'll keep you posted, God willing.
Yeah, I want to think if the timing works. I want to. Maybe I'll bring one of my kids.
God willing.
Anyway,
love it. Oh, wow. Superpower of the house. God willing, God willing. So yeah, this is the work. I mean, this is the whole idea of taking our experiences and really elevating, at the end of the day, science and epigenetics, that's all this is all about, right? It's taking the cell that holds the memory of what it is that we went through and then putting it, in fact, it's like put people through a beautiful meditation where we take the memory and we actually, again, using the power of imagination, we take that cell's memory all through meditation, we put it into a different environment using the science of epigenetics, and we create a completely different surrounding of that memory. And by doing so, as we know, one of the things of the quantum mind and the quantum field is now that cell that's in a different place through the power of imagination, right? We know intention is everything. God, Baal Shem Tov says you are where your thoughts are. So through that process, you can actually isolate the cell, and then that cell communicates differently to the cell that holds the memory in your mind, right? You duplicate it, and then you actually emerge with like a completely different perception and mindset of the experience that's been stuck in your memory. No, thinking it's bad, I'm a victim, blaming, not forgiving, all that begins to change. It begins to unravel in your own mind. So, this is the beautiful work. And I do believe this is a Messiah, conscious work.
Can you explain that again about the cell? I don't think I quite caught everything. How does that work?
Oh, it's a very deep concept. So this is something I'm teaching actually in the Healing Hearts program that I'm teaching now. We're almost close to the end. But what you do is through the power of imagination, we sort of take a memory that we have, right? We recognize where is that cell. We think that our cells and our memories are only in our mind. One of the things we learned through epigenetics is that we have these cells travel all around the body, right? That's right. Why does a person have broken knee or a sprained ankle or pain in their shoulder or slip disc? it's because there's a memory of a trauma, a fear, a trapped emotion that's in that cell that got lodged into that part of the body. So
You say
once
one cell, it's one cell, or
it's
like if a person,
it's a plexus of cells. It's a plexus of cells. Once a cell sticks, then it sort of draws to it other cells. So you've got this nexus of cells that are stuck in different areas of the body. But
so
it
that's how
started
like
with
a
one
trauma
cell.
would turn into arthritis or MS or stomach
Yes,
something. Wow. So you
exactly.
have, do you find it's always emotional trauma based?
Always. It's
Whoa.
consciousness. We only live in, it's consciousness.
But
We're
it could be someone
instantly.
else's emotional trauma
Yes, that's what I'm
that's
saying.
living in
That's where
your hip or your stomach or
yeah,
your brain.
that's why I'm
Wow.
always looking for who is that, what we call end person. Who is that person who's on that line? And sometimes there are multiple. There's from the father's side family tree. There's from the mother's side family tree. There's past lifetime, right? And sometimes you find like an enormous amount of people sort of sitting on that cell plexus, right?
Wow. And probably a lot of them experienced similar symptoms,
Yeah.
parallel symptoms in their, wow.
Yeah. We are complex human beings. Yes, somebody's asking about step parents, absolute ex-husbands, absolutely. Because at one point or another, the fact that we had an energy exchange with them, that just because I'm physically, remember, everything is energy. There is energy. Life is condensed energy. All matter is condensed energy. There is no physicality. There's only energy. There's only consciousness. Energy is power of light, of consciousness. So the minute I had an energy exchange with anybody, that gets somehow imprinted inside my body. Now, if it's something that I work through, or I'm in my avoda, what we call, I'm in my process of processing and I want to flow, so I'll let that flow and then it won't get stuck. That's why you have to be very flexible in life. You have to go with the flow. Okay, I wanted to go to ShopRite, but I ended up in Target. Okay, go to Target. That's where God wanted you. To be very flexible with life. It's not my way or the highway, it's God's way. It's all, where are you taking me? Where do you want me to go today? Who do you want me? Maybe there's somebody I need to meet in Target that my idea, I want to go to ShopRite, but no, God says, no, don't you understand? You have to meet someone. You have to redeem yourself. They have to be redeemed through you. You have to be redeemed through them. You have to go to Target. What are you talking about? I have to not get caught up in my own agenda. Right? Step out of the way, as they say, step out of the way, let God come in.
Yeah. Yes. So you're really showing the tapestry aspect from multiple dimensions of how really the whole thing isn't just a linear on my path, but it's more like a sphere, like everything's moving around, directed by God to, everything's a meeting of destiny at every moment. And we don't know what's happening. Sometimes we do see what's happening. Sometimes we see a shift and then we know that we did something right. So you're saying, just trying to recap for myself and maybe others, you're saying everything is emotionally trauma based, not necessarily did it start in your line. Usually it didn't, but something in your life might recapitulate or activate that thing.
Right.
If you're not born with it showing up. And then as we see it and witness it, that clears the lens so that the unconsciousness, correct me if I'm wrong any step of the way, the unconsciousness was blocking that super conscious flow that is what allows us to live life without any kind of obstruction.
Right.
And so seeing it with consciousness and an intention, I'm assuming, and prayer, automatically clears that channel. And when something takes a long time, I'm assuming you've seen some things shift. I know, I've been interviewing healers for many years. I know that sometimes things will shift like this.
Right.
And even in front of a stage, and sometimes things will take 20 years and they don't shift. And sometimes, like you described, it will take a year and a half of personal sessions. So what is it how could you define that? What do you think to yourself? I'm sure you asked this question. I'm sure you're like, Hashem, is there a way to make this faster and easier? What's holding you back? Like you said, you still have MS symptoms. I still have arthritis symptoms with everything I've done. Yes. And I'm really wondering, like, through this summit, like, what is that key? What is it? What am I still
Where's
not
the plunger? Where's the plunger?
I'm doing the work, morning, noon, night, whatever, like learning the things, teaching And many, 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 many things have shifted, even like life and death. Don't get me wrong, but miracles are very real. But then there are these things that persist, and clearly they have something still lingering that is in the system. How do we identify what that is? How do you deal with? I'm asking on a real personal level, as a practitioner in your own life with other people, a facilitator. Like, what are the questions you ask, and what are the answers you might have received, if any? Or thoughts you might have concluded around it so far?
So there's a lot of reasons why things, I call it the Hashem factor, right? That's my terminology, the God factor. We obviously can never really know why things aren't shifting as quickly or as much as we want. So there's always that aspect of ego, because no matter what, just by me and you, and I'm with you right here, right?
Yeah, no, yeah.
By me saying I want to be done with it, right? Just that is, a lot of it is ego. There's like, where's the humility? I'm talking to me, not you, right? Where's my humility and understanding that being in the process, remember, I'm becoming, there's something that I'm becoming. I need my MS. I need my MS. My MS is valuable to me. It's always putting me back on target. If I could cherish that and recognize that, then it's not my enemy. It's my co-partner. It's my
yes,
partner.
but it's not necessarily meant to go forever. Like, my theory on these things, that it's a working hypothesis. I'm watching it for many years already, and but so far I'm with it. And it says in the Tanya that when a person says, you are saying this actually, that maybe it's that deeper connection and humility and not needing, and but it does say in the Tanya that when we realize that everything is God and all we want is the relationship with God more than we want anything else, that everything that isn't right, except our no's, the N-O answer to something, just like this, as we accept the Y-E-S answer, then everything turns to yes. Everything turns to yes and comes out revealed, because ultimately God wants us to experience divine love, joy, pleasure, just in the right rectified Seder, in the right order. So, I am really for, there's a point somewhere of truth in that. And actually, I'm being very real now, very personal. In certain situations that I've had, let's say with family members or whatever, that have been life and death, and with the point that I've gone to inside myself, where then massive miracles happened, is where I acknowledge that it's not up to me, and I know that it could go the way I don't want, and yet with all that, I'm with you, Hashem, and you're with me, and I know your love, and I'm opening to your love, and I'm asking for that miracle, and I'm trusting in it. Because trust is, as you know, surely is more than many, is that trust, bitachon, is that deeper internalized level of emunah, where everything, as Chovos HaLevavos says, as the Lubavitcher Rebbe repeats at very great length, that trust level is that calm knowing that that your creator, your source, your beloved one, the only one that's generating you and everyone else and everything else, wants you to feel good. And that is an internalized emunah that is described as it's an absolute guarantee, if you can get to that, of only revealed good, right, of like the results. So there's a boundary somewhere, or a point somewhere. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the answer to the question that I'm having here. Maybe it's really,
well, I'm gonna, let me dare to say this. What first of all, the harder it is to dislodge the physical part from the body, the deeper it is in the soul. As we know, the Kotzker Rebbe, right, one of the rabbis also of the Hasidic dynasty, writes that every a small hole in the soul is a big hole in the body. So that what we understand is, if that there's something that I have a hard time dismantling in my body, it must mean that it has it runs very deep in my soul. Again, it must mean that I've done something in my life, or through the family tree, that it's like existed for such a long time in the lineage of my family tree, that every time, the word for pain, what is the word for pain? Ke'ev. Ke'ev is the letter kaf and the word av, father, right?
Oh,
that's what all pain is. What is the kaf? The kaf, when you say the letter kaf is a spoon. in fact, is the way the letter is shaped. It's shaped like a spoon. It's a scoop. So what does Ke'ev mean? What does it mean to be in pain? It means that God, the Av, Hashem, God, is scooping us like a spoon, and he's lifting us up. That's the whole idea of Ke'ev. That's the hidden meaning, but probably of more. There's so much more I could tell you about, but that's really what it is to be, Chas v'shalom, God forbid, in pain. So there must be a level of closeness. There's still something that needs to be rubbed off from the bones, right? The whole idea, I mean, arthritis is all about bone to bone, right? It's all about that connection, the joints. That means, what does it mean, joints? It must mean that I'm not joining. There's something that's blocking this joining of me and God. Now, it may not be me. I'm just going to keep yearning, and I'm going to keep wanting, and I'm going to keep, pushing myself, towards you, God. But the word etzem, which is a bone in Hebrew, right? The whole idea of etzem is atzmiut.
It means also essence. Yeah, it also means essence in
right?
Hebrew.
It's my essence. So there's something in the joining of my essence that maybe I still haven't gotten to. Now, again, if I'm recognizing that in my pain, you're there, then I'm getting closer to my essence. I'm getting much more deeper into my essence. There's no end to my essence. There's no end to how close I can get to you, God. So that, again, that consciousness is already like that Band-Aid, that pain Tylenol, whatever reliever that I'm taking, right? That in it itself is the healing. So the same thing with my MS, every time I get an awakening of my MS, I'm recognizing MS is MS. It's my truth, right? That's my
MS meaning truth.
cornerstone.
Yeah. MS or Emet means truth. Yeah. Interesting.
Truth.
Wow.
So that's how I look at it. So it's like I'm always in the communication with God, and I'm just always trying to realize that's the epigenetics I was saying to you before. So let me take that trauma of my feeling that you abandoned me, God, that you rejected me, that you forgot about me, that you gave me the raw end of the raw deck of cards, that you gave me the short end of the stick. All these terminology, we feel so abandoned by God. I'll just share with you this one thing I share with my students, which I think is a game changer in terms of mindset. I'm so busy having a relationship with God through the requests that I make with him. I'm all the time making these requests. Think about the relationship we have with God. So much of it has nothing to do with what he wants. It's my requests. And I'm always looking for my requests to be answered. Yes, for my MS to be healed and my pain and the back to be resolved. And, by my, again, my bank account to be, whatever, my husband to change, all these requests, that my relationship now with God becomes so conditional with him delivering me my request. But there's something more beyond that request. There's a relationship that I have with God from my essence, for me just being connected to him, for me just being able to do his work and reveal his glory through me, through my body, through my essence, through my existence, that I get so go gung-ho with whether or not he answers my requests or not, that my relationship with him becomes very, very conditional. God doesn't want that. There has to be another deeper place of my relationship with him that can go beyond the you answering my requests or not. Right? Do you agree?
I do. I do agree. I'm processing a lot of this too, because I'm always thinking about the end game, like you mentioned before, like the world where there won't be sickness, there won't be jealousy, there won't be poverty, there won't even be death. Everything was. So I guess I'm processing what you're saying as you're saying it. Because I still hold that.
Right. In other words,
that everything should heal in our lifetime. Death should heal in our lifetime. This is my core quest. So it's like I'm just being really personal here. My own belief system based on the Lubavitcher Rebbe mostly. But this is like that. We're in a breakoff point from the past of how things worked in the past. Also accelerating the challenges of the past together with new challenges. Like we're definitely in the transition phase of the birth. So it's like, I think that the ultimate paradox you're kind of speaking to, that how do we get totally connected beyond anything physical and just say yes to our role, yes to our life.
I'm here.
Right. Yeah. And at the same time, trust that it's going to come out in the body. Like your MS should be fully healed. It should just be fully healed.
Amen.
And there's a point where, like, also like in the world, like this whole paradigm, I'm just being me, I'm just saying me. again, there's this paradigm in our past, in our history. Now we're hovering between history and destiny like this, there's in our past, the predicate, the premise in real action, in real life, God looking at the blueprint, the premise of human co-creation has been, I give you resources, I give you pain, you overcome, you don't see the results now and then, maybe you do, but it's building something and you'll see it later. The premise of the future, of the time of redemption, when it's complete, is there's none of that anymore. It's all gone. And now you are trusted, you are evolved, you are clear, and we build together out of desire, pleasure, joy into infinity.
Right.
What that's going to look like, we don't know. Now we're in the middle where and even the Rebbe spoke to this very, very clearly, that there are two different fields of reality: the field of Mamali Kol Almin, the light of God that's within the laws of nature, fills all world, and Soviv Kol Almin, where you become so connected as a co-creator that your needs are taken care of beyond the laws of nature. It doesn't matter. So that's the point of transformation that I'm particularly looking for. Like, how do we get from one to the other? And yes, I guess it's a deepening of acceptance has to be part of it. Like, it has to be.
There's a lot of achna. I mean, I teach a lot about the 3-step process of the Baal Shem Tov, achna, havdalah, hamtacha, right? Surrendering, separating, and sweetening.
Talk about that just a bit. Talk about that just a bit, because many people haven't heard of it, even though we're at 90 minutes.
Okay. So the Baal Shem Tov, the holy Baal Shem Tov, again, the father of Hasidut, brings down the real way of healing the soul. And he says, you have to go through a 3-step process. Like, I have a couple of programs where I address this in a much more deeper way, right? So there's the first of all, the surrendering. The first step is to surrender. Surrender means silence, just to be in silence, to say, I have no idea why I'm going through what I'm going through. I have no clue. I mean, you're God and I'm little old me. Like, you were here when, before I existed, way, way before you even thought of me in creation. And I have to be that humbled enough to say, can I really say this is bad? Do I really know what bad is? Do I really know what good is? There's a surrendering and a silence and acceptance of, let me be open to this. I don't know. Let's just step back and just quiet. Mainly it's quieting down the animal, right? We all have the existence of these two poles, these two forces, the animal soul that says, justice, where's and I want out of pain. And what do you mean? And pushing it away. And that's the animal that needs to be put in its cage and said, wait a minute, shut up, just be quiet for a minute. And just let God work through you, okay? He put you in this situation. All he wants is good. Shush, just be quiet. Stop defining good, bad. This is not fair. This is whatever. All that resistance, quiet. So you kind of like meditate there for just a moment when something happens that clashes your logical mind, and you just remain in humility. The next step is now that you're like willing to allow something new to arise within you, because you quieted down your definitions of good, bad, wrong or right. So now you're sort of like open.
You're connected on a deeper level also.
Because you're not mishkabobbled with all your definitions. The minute you start defining of what, where, how, fair, not fair, there's no room for God's consciousness to come in. You're just so busy within yourself. But now that you've quieted it, the water is settled. Now, oh, wow, look, there's room in that vessel of yours. Okay, let me step in, God says. And now I'm willing to say, wait a minute, let's just pull this apart, right? The separation process is very much parallel to the idea of the ceremony that we do after Shabbos. After the Sabbath, we light a candle. We do a ceremony called Havdalah, right? Separation, where we separate the Sabbath from the rest of the week, right? So that's what happens here. Mavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. I want to separate the mundane aspect of the way I define this situation, and I want to elevate it to a place of holiness, right? I want to see something else here. Now I go into like this little sikha, this little, talk with God. And I'm like, look, you delivered this to me. Let's open this up here. I want to see the good. I know there's good. I believe in good. I'm loyal to the good. I'm your Eved. I'm your servant. I want to remain loyal to you. Can you open up open us up for me? And I have to do a lot of work here. Well, let me see. Well, maybe the reason why this happened is, and that's where the 3 dots start coming in.
Right.
Okay. You're exploring, you're doing a lot of introspection within self. A lot of that secluded one-on-one prayer happens right here. And eventually, again, I'm saying this in a nutshell, eventually that leads into the third. The third step is sweetening. The idea of bittersweet, right? That's where it is, right? The bitter turns into sweetness. Now I can look back and say, wait a minute, I learned something new about myself through this process. I would have never known that I have this fragmented ego or anger or challenge within self if I didn't go through this whole process. If God didn't introduce this bitterness in my life, I would have never even realized there is such a thing, right? So the
Right.
sweetening now, and that's what it means to have a full-blown process. I have to be able to get to a point in my life where there's a sense of sweetness where I could say, wait, this is maybe all worth my while. This
Yeah.
actually brought me to a different
Messianic
place.
promise. That's the messianic promise.
Right. That's
Messianic
that's the
promise.
ultimate sweetness. Exactly. Exactly.
Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote a letter to, there's a famous story of the Rebbe with the first president of Israel, President, I think Ben Zvi, who the Rebbe wrote a letter to him, and he did not use the term that is the Israeli Hebrew word for president, which is nasi, which means it's biblical. In biblical, it means like the princes of the tribe or the leader of the generation. And it's also the word that is used in the Lubavitch Chabad tradition for the head, for the one central soul, the Rebbe of that. Anyway, so the Rebbe wrote, I apologize for not addressing you as Nasi, but since I was in Cheder, which is the early school, usually at 3, starts at 3 years old. Since I started Cheder, and even before, excuse me, I had a vision of the one Nasi, the one leader who will be Mashiach, who will bring the world to the redemption, to the place where we can say, Odcha Hashem ki anafta bi. I thank you, Hashem, that you afflicted me. And then and only then we will understand the reason. I'm sure I'm not saying word for word, but just the paraphrase is accurate. Then we will realize the word for the reason for the forced conversions and for the things that have happened. And until then, I cannot bring myself to call anyone Nasi.
Wow.
So yeah. So that's
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And so that's the ultimate, that's like the end twist or flip in the process, when we can really be with that and simultaneously be with the complete acceptance of what's been and the complete anticipation and allowing for what is unfolding. There's another place where the Middle Rebbe quotes, and I don't remember where the quote is from, but he talks about the path to knowing God, how it's an exact, if we want to know God for real and permanently, like as a real thing in our beings, which is why we're here, to make that most profound connection with God, eye to eye, beyond the world and in the world. So he says that there has to be an exact balance. He says in Hebrew, b'shabem mamash, between Chachma and Bina, and between crying, he puts the Zohar, crying and delight, happiness, and in other words, pain and pleasure and joy. There has to be the exact balance between them, that at like that point. And then he uses a quote, which I don't remember where it's from, Ve'agiu ad sharei mavis, and they reached the gates of death, kamosha katuv, as it's written, l'chaim u'latov, to life and goodness.
Wow.
There's something in that. Yeah, that point, that's the point that.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, that where is that point? And that's the point we need to, I feel that's the point that will, obviously, that changes everything.
Right.
But you're talking
about. I mean, in my opinion, again, I'll just say that there's conditions and what it means to bring Mashiach and to bring us to a place of Geula. And one of the conditions is when the whole world will get to a point where they'll say, En lanu al milishen ela alavinu shebashamayim. There's no one else to rely on. There's no one else. When we stop looking for this one to send our salvation and this one to send my give me the solution to my problem, and so on and so forth, we have to finally get to a point and say, all solutions are with you. You created this. Right. You're going to bring it to an end.
Personally and globally. Yep.
Right. We just need to yearn for that and trust and know that he will bring that end. And that's hard. Again, that's a lot of quieting the ego and a lot of surrendering. But he's bringing us very.
It's not yearning from the outside. It's not like yearn and go out. No, it's like opening to that inner connection where you're yearning together, where you can literally feel God yearning with you, where you're in it together. This is the core of everything.
Yes. Wow. Powerful, huh?
Yes, this has been an amazing conversation. Amazing.
Wow.
Okay, so we could go on for a long time, but I can't. And I'm sure you can't either. We've already gone on for a long time. But anyway, to know more about Orit Esther's work, first of all, sign up for her free gift. Tell us a little bit about your free gift. And then you'll be on her list. You'll have her, you will, you'll be in connection with her. You'll know about all of her programs, everything that she does. You'll receive your daily dose of Amuna, getting into that field. So that the sign up for is that talk a little bit more about what people will get, and the sign up is or will be in the very immediate future underneath this video.
Right.
So that first.
So first of all, dailydoseofamuna.com is where you subscribe to the free, daily Amuna boosts of energy, of emotional healing. I speak everything through the essence of, trusting in God and believing in God and seeing the good, but it's really for emotional health. And I do, send out all kinds of, moments of inspiration that I, in my opinion, really have served over a decade of thousands and thousands and thousands of women and men that are signed up to it. Again, you have to be in that mindset again of Torah alignment, that you want to hear it from that line, from that perspective. And then there's the Or Talks, which are weekly podcasts that I put out there. Again, you could pretty much find all the links either on dailydoseofamuna.com, and or all the programs are on oramunaenergy.com. That's where you also the retreats and all the upcoming August stuff and anything that's going to be going through. That's oramunaenergy.com.
Underneath the video.
And the Or Talks, which are free, the podcasts are also the links to everything are on those two websites. Yeah.
Awesome. And then Orit Esther does work one-to-one, but primarily it seems like the best opportunity for anyone in the US who can, by the way, people said, are you doing something in Canada or this or that? I know it might be, I don't know. I actually don't know, but maybe it's still hard to get in and out of Canada. I don't know. But, but I'm sure that you have many people, like you're flying from Israel for this, and I'm sure you have many people who are flying from other places.
Yeah.
So do you think you have to be living
I have a few people coming from Canada to the Poconos one. Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to know if you're aligned with the, you have to fill out an application, make a time to connect with Orit Esther, and maybe she can help you figure out your situation in terms of where you're coming from and if the other people are coming from there. So if it appeals to you on any level, if you have to be a woman and you have to be Torah aligned, you don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be, I don't think, Torah observant per se, but you have to be Torah aligned. That's what it's all based on, just like this conversation, just like this summit. So anyway, reach out to her and see. And I know that it's going to be an incredible transformational healing experience, a bonding experience, an enlightening experience. And we all, at this point, I'll just say, connecting to each other, connecting to the soul tribe by whatever ways you make that connection, but as many, the more the better. We are creating that new order, as we are also cells. Like if you're a cell that's vibrating to more truth and more of our destiny and more divine power and more miracles and more co-creation and more potential, then you want to be connected with another cell and create that plexus of cells, and then that actually starts to get things on the road.
Woo! We're talking, that's the real atomic bomb we want.
Yeah. And that's the morphic field. And there's all kinds of metaphysics to this, but and physics, but it doesn't matter right now. Suffice it to say, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, 1 + 1 equals quantum. So if you can do that in purpose, go for it in purpose. Freudian slip. In person, go for it. And if not, then there are lots of other ways. Okay. Thank you so much, Orit Esther. It's been amazing, truly.
Thank you. You are a beautiful, divine soul. It was such a pleasure to have this forum to be able to speak about what's really important and bring healing to the world. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the listeners. And we have one more call at 1:30 Eastern. That's like 40 minutes with Rabbi Tovia Singer on a very different topic, but it will be rocking and rolling. So be there. Okay. All right, Esther. See you in the Holy Land soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank